Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 10 minutes after 10, and I call this public hearing to order. In accordance with the open government law, notices of this hearing were sent to all main media outlets, all senators and stakeholders 5 days in advance on March 28th, and a second notice was sent on April 1st, 2014. Before we begin, if anyone else still needs to sign up, please sign up. Chairman Peroni, I'll give you them. Yeah. And I'd like to recognize Senator Frank Uggan Jr., who is here, and thank you, Senator, and also Senator and Dr. Aline Yamashita. Thank you for being here as well. We have one item on the agenda, and it's a bill sponsored by Senator Tina Muña Barnes and Senator Aline Yamashita, and it's Bill 279-32, an act to provide for Guam Environmental Protection Agency conducted sustainable materials management study and implementation of a one-year pilot projection demonstrating the ability of Guam to develop a beneficial use for discarded glass bottles that would, among other things, divert glass from the Lejon Municipal Sanitary Landfill and for other purposes. I'd like to publicly say that Senator Barnes is off island tending to her mom, and our continued prayers go out to her and her family as her mom goes through her medical recovery. And so I'd like to ask the co-sponsor of Bill 279, Senator Yamashita, to please read their sponsor statement.
Thank you very much, Senator. This is written by Senator Tina Muña Barnes, who is here with us in spirit. Good morning. Thank you very much for being and participating in this public hearing. Senator Muña Barnes and I introduced Bill 279, an act to provide for a sustainable materials management study and a one-year operationally based pilot project which will assist in the development of a beneficial reuse for glass. Bill 279 seeks to ensure that the life of the landfill is extended through zero waste, recycling, and beneficial reuse programs. Today, the Guam Solid Waste Management Authority has successfully developed and implemented an island-wide system that is engaged in capturing recyclable products like paper, cardboard, and aluminum. Despite the broad array of options involved in the recycling of glass products, glass is not yet being recycled on Guam due to the lack of economies of scale. It is estimated by the Guam Solid Waste Management Authority that 120,000 pounds of glass bottles are disposed each month at the Lejon landfill. At the current rate, in less than 10 years, Guam could have over 1 million pounds of glass, taking up precious space in Guam's only landfill. Given Guam's limited and valuable land resource and its fragile environment, it is warranted and necessary that an effort be made to foster the recycling and beneficial reuse of glass. Bill 279 serves as a companion bill to both the Bottle Bill Law and also the Zero Waste Resolution 189 that was adopted by the legislature. Bill 279 seeks to provide the foundation and support for a private company to develop a solution for glass recycling. It has been demonstrated over the years that public-private partnerships work when it comes to recycling. Bill 279 creates a policy nexus for a public-private partnership to resolve the long-standing issue of glass recycling on Guam. Bill 279 is a pilot project and will only last for a year. Bill 279 takes its lead from Zero Waste Resolution 189, which was a bipartisan policy resolution introduced by Senator Tina Muña Barnes, Senator Respicio, Senator Tony Addis, Senator B.J. Cruz, myself, and Senator McCready. Resolution 189 found that based on recent estimates, the expected life of the landfill will be 35 to 40 years, with the military as a customer, and 40 to 50 years without the military, and that the lifespan of the landfill can be extended only with effective implementation of waste reduction, recycling, resource recovery, and beneficial reuse programs. The guiding principles of zero waste are managing resources instead of waste, conserving natural resources through waste prevention and recycling, turning discarded resources into jobs and new products instead of trash, promoting products and materials that are durable and recyclable, and discouraging products and materials that can only become trash after their use. Resolution 189 also called for Guam EPA to recognize the zero waste philosophy by embracing the idea of sustainable materials management rather than solid waste management. Senator Tina Muña Barnes recognizes and supports Guam EPA's move in this direction through their recently announced Zero Waste Pacific Regional Conference that will take place later this year during the month of May. It is a step in the right direction. road to developing environmental justice for all who call Guam home through meaningful and productive public policy requires hard work and a great deal of diligence. Bill 279 is an important part of pursuing sustainability for our island. We have worked closely with the Recycling Association of Guam, the broader environmental community, as well as recycling operators on Guam to develop Bill 279, which is representative of our commitment to the cause of preserving our environment for future generations, which is as strong today as it was in the beginning of our work on behalf of the people of Guam, and we look forward to working with the members of the legislature and Governor Calvo to make 279 a public law. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Yamashita. I have 4 people who signed up to testify on the bill. I'm not sure about Bob Shambach. Yeah, please step forward. From the Recycling Association of Guam, Mr. Eric Palacios, the Administrator of EPA, Mr. Shingo Kawashima, and Mr. Perron. Are you going to testify or? Okay, yeah, because you didn't check whether you were going to present, but you're always welcome, and you're here in your capacity as Guam Waste Control. Yeah, right? Or both? Okay, okay. So let me give the courtesy to the Administrator of EPA, and then we'll begin with you.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Chairman and Honorable Senators. It's my pleasure to be here today to testify in support of Bill 279. As was stated in Senator Muña Barnes' statement, I believe that this is a step in the right direction. I think that we should work collaboratively to figure out ways to either beneficially reuse glass bottles, come up with diversion strategies and keep them out of the landfills, as well as hopefully come up with ways within or in which we can maybe start a recycling program. I've been to several jurisdictions where I see glass bottles are a good commodity. They're a prized commodity, more so in some jurisdictions than others. But the bottom line is that other jurisdictions faced similar problems that we are now facing, and they were able to get around some of those challenges and put these bottles to good beneficial reuse. Locally, as we all know, we have some very creative artisans that make just beautiful wares out of these things, and so, you know, that aspect of this issue certainly contributes to the reduction in bottles that end up in the landfill or even that end up as shards along our shores. And so we want to, through this process, also identify ways to maybe further enhance and nurture that part of this issue. If I could, I would like to just make one suggestion in the language as the bill is currently written and change the word conduct study to commission. I think that maybe the best way to move forward with this is to hire some consultants in this regard. And I think commissioning a study might work in that regard. Overall, I fully support this bill, and I look forward to working with everyone, all the stakeholders that will be involved in this process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just go down the line. Mr. Perron.
Morning, Senators, Mr. Chairman. I'm here in support of the bill and the intent of recycling and reusing as many of our resources as we possibly can. Anything that'll keep things out of the Lejeon landfill and allow us to use in a different manner is very good for the community and for our planet. So I'm very much in favor of it. There's numerous uses, as Mr. Palacios had stated. You can use them in the bedding of pipes, like for GWA, putting their water pipes in, and the artistic use of glass. And there's just a lot of different things that we could use this valuable resource for instead of just throwing them in a hole in the ground. So I very much stand in support of it and will gladly assist any way I can in helping to make this a reality.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kawashima.
exporting aggregate material into Guam for a variety of road projects and sand for golf courses throughout the island. Our company, HSG, is a local company who employs more than 30 workers specializing in construction and trading. Since 1989, we have successfully imported more than 300,000 tons of the sand and aggregate for road asphalt and have developed a consistent break-bulk liner service to Guam. We are now ready to begin developing an export service from Guam to Asian market, primarily Japan. We believe that we can provide a cost-effective means of disposing the grass waste among other types of the waste stream originating from Guam that can be recycled. We recognize the need to properly dispose of the waste grass and also now currently working with potential recyclers in Japan to develop viable solutions for converting grass into new recycled product. In this regard, we support the number 27932 and look forward to its successful passage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bob?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Senators.
Morning.
My name is Bob Schambach, and I'm the current president of the Recycling Association of Guam. I've been a member of the association for more than 5 years, and my professional background is environmental consultant. I'm a geologist, and I've been in the environmental field for 20 years. I'm glad to finally see some action and activity regarding the glass recycling. I'm glad to hear that Guam EPA is also in support of that and striving towards our goal of zero waste here on Guam. And it's great to actually have a company here, Mr. Mr. Kawashima, Mr. Kawashima, and Mr. Pro. Generally, the Recycling Association of Guam, we have been contacted by several senators regarding this bill, and we are generally in support of the bill and its contents. We have offered a lot of information. We've dug around into some of the numbers regarding the amount of glass that's currently being diverted and possibly used on Guam, but the numbers are very thin. I don't think we have a good idea, number one, of the current waste stream on Guam. As far as I know, and some maybe you know better, but I don't believe there's been a waste characterization study done on Guam's waste in the past 10 or 20 years. And really, we always throw numbers around. Even at the zero waste plan, there were numbers thrown out there, but a lot of times we're relating those numbers to, say, Hawaii or the mainland. So, possibly with part of this bill, we could actually see some kind of a waste characterization study actually be done on Guam, so we have a better idea of percentages. So when Guam EPA comes out with our recycling rate of 17 or hopefully 25%, we know, where do we stand? Well, what kind of waste? Well, we understand that glass is 10% of the waste stream, or metal, or whatever is this percentage. So that's one of the things that is not included in this bill, but I think it should be part of the analysis or the assessment when it actually comes out and determines who's going to do it. On Guam, we currently have an option to divert the glass from our waste stream. GSWA currently has bins at the waste transfer stations, I believe all 3, Malolo as well, that if people are actually proactively and doing the waste diversion right now or segregation of the waste, that you can take your glass bottles there and it's being diverted. Now, unfortunately, that glass right now, even though people say it is being recycled and all this good thing, it's used for alternative daily cover at the landfill. So it's still going in the landfill, but it's kind of a beneficial reuse. We would like to see it be used for, such as Mr. Prone had mentioned, construction. You can put it in buildings, you can put it in the sand, you can put it in the cement. It's a replacement or substitute for some aggregates. There's a lot of different options as far as the types of crushers or pulverizers that we can look into, and I think that'll be addressed with the group or the people that actually do this study. But one of the things that I would like to throw out there is definitely to take a look at portability and not having a unit at one location.
Thank you very much. Let me thank all of you for your comments and your participation this morning. I'm very sympathetic to recycling efforts, and I think that if any recycling company is going to be able to exist on the island, the community has to subsidize these efforts, and this is why we moved to creating the recycling revolving fund and getting whatever assistance we can to establish these meaningful public-private partnerships. What I'm seeing here is basically we're going to be conducting a feasibility study for a company that might want to do this as a business venture. And if a company is going to do this as a business venture, then certainly that company should invest their own money to determine if that kind of business venture is viable. But in this case, as I said, this is a recycling effort. And the recycling only works when the community subsidizes recycling efforts. And so I want you to understand that's the basis to which I'm going to start off my questioning on this $250,000 study that we're commissioning. Is there a need to use this money for a study for something that we have to do anyway, regardless of what the study says? My point is, and I appreciate your comments, that maybe it's better that this just be a grant. How much would these machines cost? How much will it cost to operate these machines? And if the recycling revolving fund would make the investment to purchase these glass crushers, and we do a request for proposal, what kind of business interest is out there to partner up that commodity, that glass crusher, with the recycling company that's willing to do this? Eric, do you have any idea?
Thank you. I would say that I think it's important that we use the money to commission a study, because in that regard, it would also help the agency to better understand really what we're dealing with, what we can expect, because ultimately once this becomes a business venture, and I'm thinking positively, someone will step up to the plate and want to take this type of activity on, we will ultimately regulate that business under our solid waste program. So, to that, and I think it is important that Guam EPA be part of the process from the get-go throughout the entire study. We come up with what we know to be current best management practices in the solid waste industry, and maybe incorporate some of those regulations already and guidelines into what eventually will become a public activity.
But wouldn't the recycling company who is in this kind of business already know what those best practices are? I mean, if you commission a study and say that it's not economically feasible to try to divert glass out of the landfill because it's very expensive. There's no value to it really, other than like steel and other recyclable commodities. If you do a study and the study comes back and says it's not viable, we still got to do something about diverting those glass bottles from going into the landfill.
Right, and I agree with you in that regard. But I think that by commissioning the study, it will also, or it could potentially entice potential investors who aren't currently in the solid waste management industry to come into the solid waste management industry and further enhance Guam's ability to manage solid waste.
Do you have an idea what this $250,000 breakdown would look like?
We've not gotten that far into.
So you're not ready for this kind of program.
Currently, well, right now, it's not that we aren't ready, but we weren't sure.
How much would a study cost?
My best estimate would probably be 50, 60, 70, maybe $70,000 range.
So why don't we just fund $50,000? I'm not in the interest of giving blank checks, and I know that this committee doesn't share that perspective.
Okay, I think if we can adjust it downward, that would be okay. I do like the language that's currently in there.
Eric, it's just so broad. You're asking people to pay for their vehicle registration, having this money go into a recycling revolving fund so we can have recycling programs. Then over the years, the governor has taken $5 million out of this fund and diverted that cash somewhere else. And so here's another bill, which I understand the intent of the sponsors, that we're going to just commission another study with no end in sight as to what we're going to do after we commission the study.
Right. Well, I mean, a few
I
things.
bet you your shelves at EPA is full of studies, right? And we start something, we create expectations, and in the end, it's just a study.
Okay. Well, I mean, just a few points. I can assure everyone and the community that the current governor has not raided or robbed, as Mr. Schambach had mentioned earlier, this recycling fund. In fact, I think the fund right now is the healthiest that it has been in many years.
But has he reimbursed the fund?
I believe we're current, except maybe the last allotment.
So he put $5 million back in?
Governor Calvo has put whatever was supposed to have been allotted during his tenure. I'm not sure. I would need to get clarification from DOA on whether any monies that were expended before he came in were returned. I'm not sure.
Well, I've been asking that information for every time you come down to this legislature for a hearing. What is the status of the recycling revolving fund? We have an idea to appropriate $2 million to get the mayors, and the vice mayors, the heavy equipment they need to take care of storm drainage runoff and also recycling programs in the community. We can't move forward on that bill because there's no idea about what the cash balance is.
Right. At our last board meeting, we reported that at least as of 2 weeks ago, it was at over 3 million, in the account. It was like at 3.5 million. And so, but that number will go down
But
because
is that a paper balance or is that a cash balance?
that's a cash balance.
If you were to have a bill that says appropriate 3 million, that would be the money to do that?
Maybe not 3 million, only because we've recently encumbered some monies for the mayor's council and some other expenses. But I mean, 2 million easily. I can guarantee you, we would be able to lawfully and actually encumber.
But I just want to give the committee and the legislature and the community some confidence in picking up to what you said. Maybe this could be a phase-in approach where we have an end in sight, that if you have an idea that this is what it's going to cost to buy those kinds of equipment and to have this kind of program, we should start budgeting for that. So that if we're going to commission a study, I think that whatever the study says, I think that we need to do this.
I agree.
No matter what. So why are we going to have a study?
Well, I mean, I agree. I think the language that's currently in here, and if it's either in the bill itself or in Senator Muña Barnes' statement, where there is a sunshine provision and no money shall be used outside.
Actually, this says that these monies shall be available until expended.
No, I think there's 1 year. There's a mention of 1 year, and then also whatever isn't used reverts back into the fund.
Well, then it's tricky because it says shall be returned to the. It says any unexpended funds remaining in the EPA budget at the conclusion of the Sustainable Materials Management Study and its attendant pilot project shall be returned to the Recycling Revolving Fund. This appropriation shall continue to be available until expended and is not subject to inter-fund borrowing or the governor's transfer authority.
Correct, but there's also.
But because it's so broad, you can just keep having a study until you spend 22,000.
Absolutely not. That wouldn't be our intention either, because we've got so much to do up at the agency. But there is language right here, a 1-year pilot project. It's in Senator Muña Barnes' statement in the first paragraph. And so, I mean, with that and what's currently written in the bill, I think it's very doable. There's a sunset provision, and it's only going to be used.
But there's no the testimony says a sunset provision.
Right.
But the bill doesn't have a sunset provision.
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure what the legislative process is, but if it can be included, I'd support that 100%.
But can you give us some kind of guidance to what you believe this would cost? And
I would say between 50 to 70,000 to come up with a good, appreciable study that will help guide us forward and maybe into a phase 2 and possibly a phase 3. Hopefully not that far out.
Are you aware if the receiver or the Solid Waste Management Authority has any of this data?
I can confirm that for you.
See, because if because the receiver talked about a percentage of recyclable recycling that's currently happening, and then he talked about in the most ideal environment how this recycling can go up. So I'm sure he must have had some. That's how about from the recycler's perspective? Do you have any idea what something like this would cost? And in your own mind, both as a recycling enterprise company and as chairman of the EPA board, how do we marry these two interests so that it's not just we're commissioning a study and then we think we have to do this anyway, and then this $50,000 could have gone into buying the glass crushers or give that $50,000 to the recycling association of Guam and have them do all their outreach or fund all their community projects when they do source separations and other programs. This is an awful lot of money to be giving to somebody to do a study where we can start showing some kind of impact into the community. So when people pay for their vehicle registration, they're not wondering where all this money is going to, and so it's not just going to a study.
Yes, Senator, I think Bob Schambach's idea about wrapping a waste characterization study into this is a very good idea, because that'll let the community know what is in the waste stream, what is recyclable and what isn't. It'll put a number to how much glass is available to recycle and give the business community and the recyclers an idea of if it's something that is viable on its own or if it needs to be subsidized or whatever. I think that's almost an integral part of this and where you really get the bang for your buck in this type of a study. So I think that was a real good comment, Bob. But I think right now, none of the recyclers with the information they have are really interested in taking on glass without more information, such as what a characterization study could produce. That plus looking for markets in a more organized manner, like the gentleman next to me has said that he's got some ways to use it, and there's seems to be some more end use possibilities that are surfacing now. So I think it could be something that could take off if the right amount of information is provided to the recyclers or the community in general. The way I would envision it would be you would have, if it does become real, where you do have a glass recycling industry, you would have probably a residential component where you would have convenient drop-off locations with the mayors for the residents. And on the commercial side, your big glass producers such as your bars and restaurants that have the beer bottles and bottles of that nature could have a separate bin that could be picked up by a trash hauler, and they could be charged a fee, like a tipping fee, that could be used by the recycler to offset their costs. And so I think there is some real good uses for the glass. Again, the quantity that's out there and the economics really have to be fleshed out before a good decision could be made by the industry. And I think a study like this that includes a waste characterization study could provide that information to the community that could be used to push this type of thing forward.
The receiver's not accepting glass.
GSWA is under the receiver, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, I'm saying our recycling bins. It's glass.
No.
That's not what I thought.
Yeah, we really wouldn't want it in that stream.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Because
why is that, Bob?
the difficulty in handling it with broken glass, with the glass shards contaminating the cardboard and the fiber type products that are in there. So I wouldn't want to see it there. We're paid on a tonnage basis to sort, and you'd get some decent weight out of it, so there'd be some economics for us to sort it, but just the problems that occur with handling broken glass and the contamination of the rest of the recyclables with glass shards and stuff was something that MRFs don't like. They don't like glass.
Mr. concern about another study. But unfortunately, I think, this is the environmental consulting side of me talking now, that in order to actually put something into place, if we would ever decide to do this on a commercial scale, or even if GSWA, got a glass crusher, we have to have a study, because there are still a lot of questions out there that we don't really have answers to. A lot of people know that there is a glass crusher on Anderson Air Force Base. Okay, at this point, I don't even know how much they process. What's their percent waste stream that they're getting? Do they have, how much of the glass do they collect? Saipan has a glass crusher as well. They're a lot smaller solid waste program than what Guam has. And over the years, we've just always been scratching our head. Why the heck don't we have a glass crusher? Saipan can use it. Why is it feasible for Saipan and not Guam?
We did have a glass crusher, but it was
it's in
never.
Ordot now.
Now you see my reluctance, right?
I totally understand. That's why I think, you said, private-public partnership on something like this. I think as long as you have a private corporation, like this gentleman's, or whoever may decide to go ahead and run this thing, that they would have, better O&M on it, insurances, and things like that. So, I would hate to see this bill not be approved and the study not funded, number one. And I understand your reluctancy on the $250,000, but I think as Eric had mentioned, it's a ballpark. I don't personally see all of that funding being spent, but at least it's being set aside that if you wanted to phase it, you could.
Because the senators who sponsored this bill are really onto something good. If you had a $250,000 grant, do you think there would be some private sector interest to do to get a glass crusher and have that operational and? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was directing this to.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Karabash, yeah.
Would this amount be viable for a study?
If it was just a grant.
I'm sorry.
The money, if the grant money was available for this, could you make it viable to actually purchase
A glass crusher and have that.
make it a business?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. We are the just supply the aggregate and sand from the Philippines and Japan right now, and so now we are trying to develop the break bulk cargo liner service between Guam and Japan right now. So and do you know that Guam making the friendly ship agreement with Karatsu City of Japan, and the city of Karatsu now they are trying to find a recycling company of the glass bottle and waste tire also. So that
So the idea, of course, is to ship these things
yes,
off by them,
it's
like
exporting
the abandoned vehicles,
that's
and
kind
scrap
of the
metal.
material from Guam to Japan or maybe
So
Japan.
the $250,000 as a grant would go a long way to defray the shipping costs and make that venture not profitable, but make that venture economically sustainable.
Yeah, still we have to study some more, but I don't know exactly right now. So, but I cannot say anything right now. But of course, I don't know the 250,000 for what's gonna use for this kind of the money. So I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may just add, Bob is correct in that the Sinamai does have a glass crusher. I was out there just a couple of months ago, and basically, and nothing against the Sinamai, I love the Sinamai, but they have a 20-foot container of glass bottles on this side of the warehouse. It's converted into a 20-foot container of crushed glass on the other side of the warehouse. There's really nothing after that other than it gets crushed. And so they also asked me, like, what were some of our efforts here locally to start dealing with either whole bottles, shards, or even sharps, or even the crushed glass. And I told them that we're not even at a point yet where they are at, which is at least they have a current or glass crusher in the civilian community. The only current operable crusher is as again Bob had mentioned, is on Anderson, but that's not available to the general public. And
Do
so
you have any idea idea what Anderson does with their crushed glass?
It gets stored in roll-off bins, is what I understand. I'm not even sure it gets shipped off island or anything else.
Or it typically goes to the landfill.
Right.
Or the golf course sometimes uses
Right.
it for their facilities.
Right.
So why do we need a study when we already know what Anderson is doing, guys?
Yeah. Well, I mean, DOD is DOD. So I mean, a lot of the stuff they do is told you need to do this, and you know their glass has been used for beneficial reuse, but they don't have someone up there. Even the contractors that work on the base don't even know it's available for their construction projects. Because I know darn well they could go in there and take that sand and use it for, you know, base course or put it under their pipes whenever they put in any kind of pipes. Mix it in the concrete, but a lot of people don't even know it exists. So I think a lot of it is education.
But we don't
public
know if they'll
outreach.
be averse to donating that to the community for a community
Oh,
benefit.
Anderson certainly will. I go up there and get 5-gallon buckets all the time, and I use it for my own personal use around my home. And I've also, you know, given some of the glass to some local artists. I mean, I've made concrete pavers out
So
of
have
it.
you ever made any attempt to ask the military for a partnership where we give them the glass, they crush it, they give us the the end product, and then we donate it to golf courses, and we give GWA to line it for pipes, or give them the $250,000 to.
I hear your concern. I know that we have reached out to DOD, and they don't accept glass from outside their installation.
Well, these are very different times, and I think if the military expects us to be a partner, they're going to continue to do what they can to be a good partner by offering these kinds of relationships and creating these kinds of opportunities. I just don't think we're doing enough to do that. And instead, we want to do a study that's going to end up in some kind of. Senator, do you have any questions, or can I call Paul up? Can you just stay? Because I want to call Paul Tobiasen up to join the panel. Paul?
Oh, Senator, can I make a comment? What might be a viable option would be to have a smaller amount be used as the study to do the waste characterization and figure out how much glass is
I don't know.
really
It
there.
sounds to me like someone just wants to study.
Oh, I don't want
Yeah.
But and then the balance could be used for a grant to fund.
Let me
The
try
equipment.
to write to the military, and we can sign a letter together with the two senators that are co-sponsors. Ask them if they would revisit the idea of this kind of process where
Sorry,
we
I
get
can't-
them
I
glass.
can't hear very
You
well
keep
at
going
all.
like this. I'm trying to get
I
louder.
even have
but
my hearing aid on. It's just not working very well.
I want to turn off the mics, but then the listening audience won't see us.
What?
I want to, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Out using their Andela.
Oh, yes, yeah. Then be a good idea to go visit it.
Yeah. Let me recognize you and then ask
Yes,
you to
okay.
give your testimony.
I'm Paul Tobiasen. I'm with the Recycling Association of Guam. And wanted to ask if you had seen the email I had sent to Senator Barnes. Okay. In there I mentioned a few points which should probably be considered testimony for this issue. And of course I'm looking at it right now. Let me see, what was I saying here? Yeah, basically, like I said in my letter, my email, is that basically this Bill 279 does just two things. Want to write up a study and then show applications. Just those two things. But looking back in history, we've already got Public Law 100-24, and that requires a contractor to purchase pulverized glass and use it under Guam contracts for roads. So I'm just thinking, why isn't it just enforced? To enforce it, you have a market, and they're still working on that the bridge road, maybe for the next 5 years, I don't know. But there was an application right there in that road construction. I submitted some paperwork this morning showing you some color pictures of did you see this picture? I gave it to the desk over here. Yeah, Senator Yamashita has that. that shows some actual uses and application of the pulverized glass. And it may not be a money maker, but one of the points I wish to make here is that the objective should not be focused on can it make money, is it economically feasible, but to my mind, let's divert another item from the landfill. If we can divert it, without too much expense and difficulty, let's do it. So these papers show that it can be done in Texas, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, so forth. And another aside is that it will create jobs. Not a lot of jobs, but it'll be can work towards increasing jobs. So anyway, I agree with Bob that anything like this with this machine, like the one at Anderson, it should be an O&M contract with a private company. Let them, if it's taxpayer money to bring it in, that's fine. But once it's here, let a private contractor house it, maintain it, and of course they should be compensated, but if that machine ever stops running, then the check stops. But years ago, you may remember 1995, 1996, there was a lot of stories in the PDN about the glass pulverizer that came to Guam, and it was moved up to Ordot. So it's still there at Ordot, except that it's buried. It really is buried. But it was completely functional, and it did cost $89,500 at that time, and Senator Bamba brought it in. Okay, so anyway, generally I'm in favor of the bill, okay, with those things that I brought up in my emails.
Can you please forward your emails to us?
Can you help me out there?
Yeah.
Forward the emails to Yamashita.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay, and then Mr. Chair, just to point out, there actually is language in the bill that speaks to putting actions to words to actions, page 2, lines 26 through 28, and then on the last page, lines 39 and 40. So it is an operationally based pilot project as well, in addition to the study that, I think everyone hopes will come up with best recommendations on how to successfully implement it and carry it out.
Yeah. Let me, if you guys have a little bit more time, let me recognize Mr. David Bell, who would like to participate in the discussion. I want to recognize you as a private citizen who has experiences in these kinds of recycling programs, where the idea is, what do you do from the beginning all the way to the end? Like the abandoned vehicle program in the early days, they were just towing these abandoned vehicles or carting them and stockpiling them in some areas throughout the island. And so they've actually, through the vision of Mr. Bell, in a previous legislature 12 years ago, set up this process where you take it in from towing from someone's yard to actually having this as a shipped off island, like what you want to do with the glass bottles. So the reason why that abandoned vehicle program's working is because it's being subsidized by the recycling revolving fund. So did you want to you got to speak into the mic, I'm sorry, because we're recording and then people are also following.
I already pointed out to the administrator that the intention of the bill is not only to conduct a study, as Bob pointed out that we needed, but also to operationalize whatever came about. So it's an actual operation. Someone mentioned that we may have to put bins in individual houses. So it actually not only does a study, but it actually creates a program of action.
Do you think then you can provide the committee with some measurable goals? And so when we go back to evaluate how $250,000
A measurable goal would be that glass is no longer going into Luzon. That it is actually being, whether it's being shipped off.
I'm looking for accountability, right? And so if that's a measurable goal to prevent glass from going into the landfill, at what percentage of that goal would we say that we've been successful?
Well, at this moment, I think any amount would be successful. But I think the idea of this operation is to make sure that no glass is going into the landfill.
And I'm looking for some kind of evaluation component.
Just to answer your question, how I would or what I would deem successful, at least from the get-go, is the first glass bottle that we prevent from getting into the zone would be 100% better already than before we implement it.
Eric, if that's what you're looking for, give me your glass bottle and I'll put it in my house.
No, I'm just saying that's
I'll
the
reuse
start.
it. I'll reuse it, and like we always do, we save all the glass bottles, and we, especially the smaller ones, and you use it to put other stuff in it. So if you think that that's the way we're gonna say we're successful by preventing the first glass bottle from going to the landfill, give me your glass bottle. I'll use it.
No, but then we build on that. We just continue moving forward. You just asked what we would deem to be successful, and so that's what I'm saying is baby step. That would be the start of it, and eventually just totally eliminate glass bottles.
Mr. Chairman, there are a lot of different things that you can look at as far as the glass bottles. And again, if this study is implemented, you're looking at the volume of the glass, the glass that's being pulverized, and you can put a monetary value on it, because even now at 60 tons, what volume is 60 tons? How much is that going to the landfill? And now you're looking at the tipping fee, of the 60 tons that are going to the landfill. So you can put a dollar amount on what could be diverted right now. Unfortunately, those 60 tons are still going to the landfill, but if you put even $200 a ton, I don't know how much exactly it is, but that's a monetary value. You can definitely put a dollar value on that, and those dollar values would hopefully translate into, some kind of economic viability just right there alone. So you're looking at the volume you're saving in the landfill, and you're looking at the money that we're not paying to actually dispose of it at the landfill. Some of the other things in the study that are going to look at is, like Mr. Tobiasen had given you there, not only are we going to put it in the roads, because maybe DOT has certain stipulations in their program that says you have to use this certain type of aggregate. You can't use glass. But in talking to, some of the companies here that actually supply the concrete and the asphalts for our roads, they've looked into some of these things as well. They looked into putting granulated tires into the roadway surfaces. They've looked into putting plastics into the surfaces, glass as well. So I think just, there's 10 different entities right now that have information, and they've done studies on their own. And I think by doing this study, you just compile all that into one report and say, hey, over the last 20 years, we've looked at this. We've even bought a glass crusher before. We know we've wasted money in some places, but, you have one compilation of a report, a study, that says, let's not make these mistakes again. And now we have metrics. We know how much glass is coming into Guam, okay? Is that glass or are those bottles viable to put onto the bottle bill? I don't know. It's a bottle. Now that it actually has an economic value, in which the bottle bill states, the only reason the bottles aren't in the glass bottles are not in the bottle bill, because it has no value. It's not economically feasible to put in the bottle bill. But if we put a dollar amount on a ton of glass, now it might be interesting. Hey, let's put glass bottles into the bottle bill. So then, boom, you're going to 100% more people are going to probably bring glass bottles. So instead of 60 tons a year now, we're going to have, I don't know, 400 tons of glass a year. But, there's a lot of unknowns, granted, but there's a lot of people that have a lot of information out there. It just needs to be compiled. And at this point, Guam EPA doesn't have the resources, or haven't, actually addressed that. And other organizations, such as our own, the Recycling Association, we have not done our own study internally either. So,
But the bottle bill does include bottles.
not glass.
It should.
But it can't be until it's determined to be economically viable. Yeah. But here locally, we haven't done that.
It's called the bottle bill, but it really is the Beverage Container Control Act, not bottles.
Yes.
I can say from my own house, I have 100% glass recycling. So 0 zero glass goes. Oh, wait, I shouldn't say that. All of my glass from my house goes to Dedido transfer station in that gigantic 40-foot container. I wish there was a better way. If I could bring it to Anderson, that's what I would do. But I've seen that machine operate, and years ago I brought up to Anderson 2 55-gallon drums, half full, and my truck almost broke trying to carry it. But it took them only 15 minutes to process that. It was just in and out and done, really fast. But like Bob says, I agree. There's lots of studies been done, and I don't think the contractors, Black Rock, Hawaiian Rock, I don't think they would have any problem utilizing that, because even the worst case scenario, once it's pulverized and it can be slightly rounded, you can put it on the beach, without any hazard, or you can just throw it under the road and then put something on top of that, a road, concrete. So just there are ways. We just have to be creative. Just use it instead of sending a door knock. One thing I'd like to mention, if I could, my granddaughter got caught in Palau because there was a broken piece of glass in the water when she jumped. Okay, and meaning that whatever we're using in Malaysian landfill right now, we're driving over with a bulldozer, which sounds okay until you have to walk on it. Broken glass is a hazard, but pulverized glass is not a hazard. So which is what those documents show. The other issue is, besides just beer bottles, wine bottles, there is fluorescent tubes, which right here, these are all the fluorescent tubes, and incandescents, and the GPA mercury vapor glass. That's a special case, so there has to be some provision to make sure that doesn't, which that shouldn't get to the landfill. But they have machines for that. But again, that opens the door for small businesses to create and to come in and fill that void and take care of those kind of glass issues.
Yamashita?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It seems to me that we have little bits and pieces of knowledge, of data. We have a need for other knowledge pieces, such as a current waste stream study. It seems to me we have different people across our community, outside the gate and inside the gate, who could come together and strengthen what it is we want to do, how to protect our environment. And so perhaps, I'll be speaking with the main sponsor of this, and maybe what we can do is itemize a little bit better what exactly the study will do and what a pilot project would look like, so that the accountability piece that Mr. Chair rightfully raises is clear, right? And it may be, as you're saying, Mr. Palacios, it may not be $250,000 that is needed once all of these pieces of information are pulled together. And it'll be the same folks, and perhaps more, who would help us really itemize what this is going to look like as we proceed forward.
And because time is of the essence, this committee will move as fast as you give us that information that Senator Yamashita is suggesting. We go into session next week. Also, could you give us an idea from just your administrator's perspective, Eric? How long would it take for you to do the RFP? So in the bill, we can also mandate that within X number of days, EPA shall issue an RFP for the following, and then we itemize what Senator Yamashita is suggesting. Like, how long would it take you to do an RFP? 60 days, 90 days?
I'm going to say between 60 and 90, because a perfect procurement is about 45.
If we give you 90, you think that's sufficient?
I think we'd be able to put out a respectable.
You don't have to take 90 days, but
right.
you...
No more than.
Yeah. Or within 90 days.
Right. I think that's
Would you be
doable.
okay with that? So we don't provide an appropriation. There's cash here, and then then we ask you, where's the study? Oh, we're still trying to do the procurement process to commission someone.
Right.
And the reason why that time period is very reasonable is because by the time we mark up this bill, we will have identified what it
Guam EPA is the primal in this, and they're going to be doing the contracting. We would like to request consideration for nonprofit organizations to actually perform the study and possibly run the whole project. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations on Guam and several in the solid waste interest groups that may be interested in doing this.
Can you can you help us process that suggestion a little bit more? Can we require that that this money shall only be available for nonprofit organizations, for registered nonprofit organizations on Guam in good standing?
I don't know if I'd want to pigeonhole it to that
Well,
because
but the thing is, if you either say you're going to do it or you don't, because if we recommend and it doesn't happen that way.
I don't know if I've ever seen that or if it's even feasible or
Well,
possible.
we do it in a sense for like Sanctuary and other non-government organizations, Catholic Social Services. We don't name the nonprofit organization in the law, but we do say such sums as like whatever the amount is provided to the Department of Youth Affairs for the contracting of programs for youth and families. So for Sanctuary, it's to house, and then that particular.
Just a consideration. I don't know if that's ever been considered or thought of.
Yeah, I think we can certainly give preference at least first.
Are you confident that you would have as a nonprofit organization the capacity to do something like this?
I don't know as the Recycling Association of Guam right now if we could perform that. I do not know that. But I know that there are several other nonprofits that
right there
may
you
be interested. Or we
Paul.
may, or maybe all three.
Paul could do
Paul
this
could do
study
it.
for free. Although we won't ask him to do that.
But there may be interest, because they are nonprofits, maybe even a group of nonprofits or somebody would want to take the lead on it. I really don't know. I just wanted to throw
A
that out there.
consortium of nonprofits?
Possibly. I mean, 2 or 3 might get together. I don't know. Because I mean, I'll tell you right now, with the Recycling Association of Guam, it's tough to get anybody to do anything. So, and then if we're held at, you need to complete this in 365 days, it might be difficult for our organization in particular.
Right.
There are other organizations that may be able to, whip this out no problem.
Right.
But it won't prevent this NGO from subcontracting to.
No.
That's what I mean. So you may be the one applying for the grant, and then from there you figure out how you might get some businesses to do the work, and then it's a donation to the Recycling Association, or there's some. So we might leverage X amount of money to get bigger value in a return. So I don't know. I appreciate those suggestions.
I think we can dedicate preference to NGOs, but not shoot ourselves in the foot by specifying NGOs and leaving it open to even private enterprise. Should no NGO decide to step up to the plate?
Okay. I know you guys have the plan in your mind. I'm just trying to get it on paper. Yeah, you do. I know you do.
And I appreciate the intelligence of Senator Respicio, because I too, in the schooling area and in education, we have so many studies that we paid so much money for, and they sit on our shelves. So I think the beauty of this, especially how you would word the RFP or the IFB, and you get a consortium already at the get-go, you're going to have a collaborative community, and then you leverage those resources, and then the study gets done, and then there's buy-in, and then we actually do something with it, right? And so if everyone buys in, and whether it's time or intelligence, I think that'd be really good. Import, export, golf courses, even homes, and all of that. It's just like, what can we do? And then everyone goes outside and says, look, this is what can happen, and it starts with one bottle, and it grows to multitudes and stuff, and it saves, our environment. So I think that's a really grand idea. So I agree with Senator Respicio. What is the language that needs to be reflected in this bill? How can we mark it up so that we can proceed in that regard? And it has to itemize what the pilot will look like, or what the study. And I'm not sure it's even a pilot anymore. Maybe we're just going to phase in something now. But how everybody will come together and carry it through.
head goes at 1,000 miles an hour sometimes.
I was just gonna thank Senator Yamashita for fleshing out my own thoughts and explaining what I'm really trying to do. So wow.
It got a little rocky here for a while. So I was like, ooh.
Well, sometimes the process is painful, a little bit sloppy, but it has to be public.
Well, I know that we're going to come to your house, Mr. Chairman, and get all your glass bottles if something happens here. So as Senator Yamashita was actually going through this and thinking about what Guam EPA is going to have to do as far as itemizing, kind of flushing out the thoughts, we definitely need to have some metrics as to the performance of whoever's contracting it. So, figure out those metrics. And one of my ideas here was, fine, you can do a study, you can get the glass crusher, but then actually do 1 or 2 or 3 viable projects to show that it does work and it is viable. Don't just have a piece of paper here. Let's go out to Agania now and pave a sidewalk using crushed glass that we produced using this money from this glass crusher from the study that we performed. So,
And isn't that the whole
It is.
basis to which the Recycling Association of Guam
Yes.
exists in the first place?
We can pave our new Congress building with
Yeah.
parking lot.
Okay, Paul?
Add something in line with what Bob was saying, to have a physical, real item you can actually touch and see. I mean, the residents can actually touch and see. Talking about plastic and recycled plastic, anybody here can go to Guam Royal Hospital, and when they sit on a bench, they are sitting on recycled plastic. And that's just an example of an item that could have gone to the dump, the landfill, but it's converted into a usable product, useful product by the people up at GMH. But it's there right now and today. So the same way, that's just an example of something that, like glass, which we're talking about today, could be shown in a similar fashion.
Yeah. Thank you all for your participation this morning. I didn't think one bill was going to take an hour and 15 minutes, but I think the whole exercise this morning really showed the capacity building, and how that when we are very open about what it is that we want to do and what we want to be, and showing opportunities to support NGOs, and I appreciate all the suggestions that you guys made. It really shows that we can take this idea as brought forward by the 2 senators, and then through the public hearing process generate some excellent feedback. So we want to move quickly. I think I certainly have the support of Senator Yamashita and Senator Barnes if the bill is amended. It's better that we discuss these things at this point than to have us go into the session hall and then deal with 13, possibly 12 other colleagues asking all these questions that we asked today, and then we're going to look ill-prepared and not like we have and present an idea where there's really no end in sight other than a study. So whatever the funding is going to be required to do this, you just have to help us justify it. So thank you for your participation, and we want to move as quickly as you guys can move, and that's our commitment. Thank you. We are adjourned.